What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Lucas, your local realtor for all things southeastern Wisconsin. And these market videos are my favorite type of videos to make. I started off as an investor in small multifamily units. So before becoming licensed, I loved analyzing, interpreting the market data, so much so that I studied, got my license, became a realtor, so I could have access to all the good information that helps me put together these types of videos. If you have any questions or things you'd like me to cover in a future market video, feel free to comment them below and I'll make sure to get to them. But let's go ahead and hop into April 2025 market update for the Metro Milwaukee areas. Now, before we dive into it, the Metro Milwaukee is defined as four different counties: Milwaukee, Waukesha, Ozaukee, and Washington. If you take a look at the screen here, you'll see some of the 10 most popular cities or municipalities within those counties. And I'm sure if you're watching this video, you're familiar with a handful of them, and likely you're thinking about making a move to one of them. Now, before we go into the slides and all the charts and data, understanding market trends really boils down to what you see on the screen here. Number one, supply and demand, or the inventory and the sales that are active through properties on the market currently, not ones that are contingent, not ones that are sold or pending. The inventory is what is considered active properties on the market. Total number of homes currently listed and available to buy. Sold, on the other hand, are properties that have closed already, and these two numbers combine to give you what the supply and demand can look like in a particular area. The absorption rate, or how fast homes are selling, kind of puts the supply and demand into perspective. It tells us how long it would take to sell all the current listings that are currently on the market if no new ones came onto the market and the demand stayed the same. The lower the absorption rate, the hotter the market. The higher it is, the slower the market is. Days on the market, on the other hand, can also kind of give us a temperature check for how the market's doing. Higher days on market means it's a slower market, and the shorter the DOM or days on market, that means this homes are selling fast. It's good to use the median average or the median data here instead of the average. There's certain homes that might not be priced right or listed well might sit on the market and skew that average upwards. So median numbers for a given price range are a good way to look at days on market. And lastly, we have your median sold price to sale list price. The median sold price is just the middle price of all homes sold, not the average. So again, it's less affected by the extremes. And then our sale list price ratio is what a home sells for compared to what it was listed for. If you see they're above 100%, that means the home sold for more than listed. If you see it below 100%, that means it's sold for less than what the agent originally listed it as. Now, a few different methods or a few different ways you're going to see the data on here for the main slide that breaks down our current month, April 2025. The first thing you're going to see is last month's data. So this is going to be coming out in May, right? But we don't have data for the entire month until that month is completed. So you'll always see data kind of lagging behind a month, and that's why we have April 2025 data instead of April 20 or May 2025. Now, April 2024 is going to show us the growth and account for seasonality. Where were we at last year in this type of market? Now we're going to do the same month as well for 2019, what our normal was prior to the pandemic. And then we're also to go back 10 years just to see how much real estate has appreciated, give you a glimpse into the past of how the market used to be for things like monthly inventory, for days on market, for closings during the same month. So that's what you're going to see on this screen here. And this really breaks down the Metro MLS areas as a whole. So those four counties: Waukesha, Washington, Ozaukee, and Milwaukee. Now, starting here, in comparison to where things were last April, inventory is up 24.8%. If you look at the numbers, it's up about 600, which isn't a huge jump if you look back farther into where it was at in April 2019 and April 2015. It's still less than half. So even though it's gone up since April 2024, it's still relatively low compared to historical trends. Closings, on the other hand, are roughly the same as they were last year and a little bit lower than they were in 2019 and 2015. Days on market is roughly static in comparison to last year, April. And then in terms of the overall price increases for the sold median price of homes, it's up around 7 to 8%. Data on here specifically this day listed it at 7.69% increase year over year from April 2024 to April 2025. And if you look back at the April 2019, April 2015 data, you can see just how much homes have appreciated since 2015. They've over doubled since 10 years ago. Now, this graph here highlights that while listings have a slight uptick thus far in 2024, overall they are down substantially when compared to pre-pandemic times, like we talked about. There are many factors that go into this, but one notable thing that's been getting more attention is the rate lock effect. This is essentially where homeowners are staying put because their current mortgage rate is much lower than today's rate. And although they may have seen great appreciation in their home's current value, if they were to buy into the market, they'd be paying more monthly for less home. So you can see how from 2014 on, it kind of drops down until recently, 2024 has had a slight uptick in the listings for sale. Now, still looking at the metro Milwaukee area, median sales prices have risen for all four counties and continue to climb, largely due to factors such as supply and demand. The median value as of April 2025 is $350,000 compared to $331,000 at the end of last year. In a normal balanced market, home prices typically increase about 3 to 5% year over year, which is generally in line with inflation and wage growth. The metro Milwaukee areas have far outpaced this over the last 6 years, with increases ranging from 7.7 to 10.2%. This is double what you would typically see in a typical market. With increases year over year outpacing wage growth in many sectors, home affordability has rightfully become a hot topic in many parts of the United States. While this topic won't address that specific issue in depth, I do plan on releasing a couple in the future that will go down home affordability in Wisconsin, specifically the southeastern region. So stay tuned for that. When contrasting the housing market back in February 22 versus February of 2025, we can see that things have drastically cooled off for a lot of regions. If you look at the map on the left here, those dots that are in the red, they show a higher score, which indicates a hotter metro housing market where sellers have more power. And then when it's a seller's market, they control the listings, they control the price, and it's harder to get a bargain within those markets. Contrast to 2025, you see a lot of those red dots have disappeared, but they've stayed in the East and West Coast, and then notably also in the Midwest. When consuming information related to the housing market, make sure you're looking at data specific to the markets of your interest, not just listening to the headlines that pop up on your Facebook feed or in the news or on the talk radio. When comparing the national median sales prices of homes to Metro Milwaukee, we are still considered behind or underpriced. Most of 2023 through 2024, we have outpaced the national average when accounting for seasonality. Looking at the graph on the left, you can see just how Milwaukee metro areas compared to the national market, lagging quite a bit behind. And you can see here in the last year and year and a half, we've caught up with the green line on the right graph indicating the increased rate of growth that we have over the national average. But while we have, increased and or maybe gained some traction on it, we are still quite a bit behind. This graph here looks at new listing supply. New listing supply just shows how much fresh inventory is available for buyers. If supply is up, buyers have more options and sellers may face more competition. If supply is down, inventory is tight, which can lead to faster sales and higher prices. If demand stays strong, that is. It's a key indicator of how balanced or how competitive the market is right now. The Metro Milwaukee data suggests as we head into peak spring and summer market, we see similar trends appearing that we saw back in 2024. If May is anything like last year that we see towards the left-hand side of the graph, we should expect to see a peak in new listings this month, followed by a steady influx until things slow down in October and February. So we're on par to kind of maintain the consistent trend that we expect to see throughout the spring market. This slide compares new listing supply and active listings side by side. New listing supply is the number of homes just listed during a specific time period, like this month. Active listings, on the other hand, are the total number of homes still for sale, including both the new and older listings that haven't sold yet. Looking at them side by side helps you to understand how fast the market is moving. If a new listings are high but active listings stay low, that means homes are selling quickly. If inventory is building up, that means both are likely rising. Supply may be outpacing demand, giving buyers more options. If in a balanced market, you'll see a sharp rise in active listings without a rise in new ones, and this could mean homes are sitting longer. Metro Milwaukee data suggests that since January of 2024, the market has followed a typical seasonal pattern, with inventory and activity ramping up in spring of 2025, which is what we generally will see in this time of the year. Compared to earlier months, there is a clear, concise increase in new listings and buyer movement, which is normal for this time of the year again, as prices appear relatively stable, suggesting consistent demand even as homes come to the market. This one here, specifically towards single-family home prices and the sold prices at that, we look at the new median list price and the sold median list price. And the new median list price, That's the asking price of homes when they first hit the market, what the agents put them onto the market at. Sold median list price is the number to look at. It's the final price that the home actually sold for. Looking at them together can show how competitive the market is. If homes are selling close to or above list, that means the demand is strong. If sold prices are below list, buyers have more negotiation power. And a seller pricing strategy can come into play here. A big gap between these two metrics might suggest that sellers are overpricing or the market might be softening. A small gap, on the other hand, means prices are in line with the buyer expectations. Our data from the Milwaukee Metro suggests that from January 2024 to May 2025, the new median list price and the sold median list price have remained closely aligned with only slight variations month to month. This suggests that sellers are pricing their homes realistically and buyers are willing to meet those prices. So the supply isn't there, but the demand is to keep the home prices rising. The narrow gap between listing and selling prices indicates a balanced, steady market, not overheated, but not soft either. It also signals that homes are generally selling close to asking price, which is a good sign for sellers and shows stable demand, which could be good for buyers. Now, this can be seen a little bit more clearly here when we look at the sales to list price ratio. Again, mentioning this earlier, if it's over 100%, this means sellers are getting more than what they list their home for. It's a more competitive market. If it's under 100%, sellers are getting less than what they list their home for. There's more room for negotiation. And as we look at April 2025, we're at 101.4%, which means in general, most well-priced homes are going over asking price, and they're selling more than what they were listed for in competitive markets. Now, this can be seen here in our buyer's market trends. And when we look at a buyer's versus a seller's market, there's a few different things and a few different ways you can know if you're in one. So this example here takes us down to Waco, Texas, where they're in a buyer's market. What that means is there's 6 months plus of inventory. Buyers in this area have more negotiating power because there's more homes on the market. It's putting them in the power seat. Prices may stagnate or decline because of this as sellers go to compete on price, conditions, and concessions. So if you look at Waco, Texas, they have a median days on market of 64. Their sold to list price is below 100% at 96.4, and their months of inventory is way up to 31.59. Now, if we look at a balanced market here, or one that's closer to it, this would be Boston, Massachusetts. A balanced market indicates that there's about 4 to 6 months of inventory. Homes sell at fair market value. There's not bidding wars, nor heavy price cuts dominating the market. And overall, it's a stable market conditions, good for long-term planning. Looking at Boston, they have a monthly supply of 6.59. They're selling 98.9% of what they list it for, so just below list price. And their days on market is sitting around 32. Now, if we switch gears, we look at a seller's market, Milwaukee County, Wisconsin, for this example. Seller's market is where we have less than 4 months of inventory, and the sellers generally will set the terms, and the buyers must move quickly, often with full priced or above ask offers, and often give up certain concessions to make their negotiation or their offer stand out. Limited inventory forces more competition per listing. Now, if we look at Milwaukee here, months of inventory is sitting at 0.82. We have less than 1 month of inventory on the market. Sold to list price, while this data came out, is at 103.8%, meaning that on average, sellers are getting 3.8% above what they ask for when they list their house, and the median days on market is just at 11 days. So Milwaukee County is a competitive one in comparison to the markets that we just looked at. So if we look at the wider picture here, the Metro Milwaukee area as a whole, it's a seller's market. Milwaukee County, Ozaukee, Washington, and Waukesha all are in a pretty steep seller's market, with the greatest on there having just 1.27 months of inventory, and the most days on market, the median value, is at 23. Most of them are either at 1% or slightly below when you look at those key market value variables for months of inventory. Well, this may be the case depending on where you're searching and what price range you're looking at. You may be able to negotiate. Real estate is hyper-local, and diving deeper into the numbers for a specific area can paint a clearer picture. But overall, most areas, in fact, in the Metro Milwaukee area are in a seller's market still. Now, some examples of inventory at the end of April. We can look at these municipalities that are popular within the Milwaukee metro areas. We have Brookfield, Cedarburg, Waukesha, Tosa, and Whitefish Bay. Now, you might be looking at some of these totals, 51, 61, and thinking that's a pretty decent amount on the market. But you have to go and look at most buyers are going to be within a narrow window range when it comes to the home that they're able to afford. When you break it down, let's go to, let's say, example of Waukesha, and you have a home buyer who is looking between the $300,000 and $400,000 price range. Well, instead of those 61 homes that they're able to choose from, it's really just the 17 that fit within that market. So looking at the price range you're shopping within, how many properties are really in the market within your price range, and you'll see why the competition is so high and why properties have continued to rise over the years, even though the interest rates have been high as well. Now, mortgage rates, speaking of them, remain high in comparison to where they were just a few short years back. And currently they're sitting just below 7% as of the time I'm recording this market update. You can see on the screen here from Freddie Mac's survey, it was at 6.76 towards the end of May 2025. Projections are currently all pointed towards a slight lowering of rates as the year goes on. However, as we are nearing the end of May, reality is rates have gone up slightly. My advice here, buy a home that you can comfortably afford at today's rate, and if it happens to come down in the future, you can refinance to get a lower rate, but don't bank on it. Most of these forecasts are predicting that it'll be in the low 6% come August, but as of the moment, it doesn't seem like that's going to be coming true. Nobody knows what's going to happen. So again, bank on being able to make your payments on today's current interest rate and the interest rate that you get locked in on with your lender. Make sure to shop around as not all lenders offer the same rate on a given day. Now, this graph here shows how your buying power is impacted by your mortgage interest rate. It assumes that you bought a house for $330,000 in 2024 with a 10% down payment. It's going to have fixed property taxes, homeowners insurance, PMI, and no HOA fees. So the only thing adjusting here is going to be that interest rate that you locked in when you bought your home. If you bought it at 4%, you're paying roughly $2,200 per month. If you bought it at 5%, it jumps up to $2,400, 6% closer to $2,600. And what this highlights is that for every 1% increase in interest rate, that monthly payment that you're paying each month to your lender jumps up by $180. That $180 jump might not seem too much for some, but that's going to impact the amount of home that you qualify for. Buying power decreases as interest rates increase. A rough guideline for budgeting for total housing costs is to spend no more than 30% of your gross income on housing each month. In the example above, your total household income was $96,000. You'd be able to afford roughly $2,400 towards housing costs, roughly 30% of that take-home pay. The chart shows that for each 1% jump in interest rate, you lose roughly $20,000 in buying power. So remember that $180 jump for each 1% interest rate climb, that translates to $20,000 decrease in buying power. With current interest rates, this has left a substantial amount of people priced out of the market. If you're starting your home search, make sure to factor in how changing interest rates could impact your buying power and speak to your lender about locking in a rate if you find the current rate allows you to purchase a home within your range that you'd ideally like to be in. So again, just looking at these numbers here from 4% being able to afford a $355,000 home, if we jump to 7%, you're losing $70,000 in purchasing power just by having a 3% increase in interest rate. It's a big change. So April 2025, the market summary. For sellers, strategies are still important for marketing your home to make sure it shows its best. So when it comes to market, all those buyers that are waiting on the sideline are going to be bidding against themselves to get your home because it's in such good condition and in such high demand. If you're interested in how much your home is worth based on maybe how much it's appreciated since you bought it, make sure to reach out to me and I would love to do a free CMA. Everybody on the Provision Properties core team that I am a part of has their pricing strategy analysis certification. So we are a step above most realtors when it comes to evaluating a home's value. Now, for buyers, on the flip side, how to negotiate and make strong offers so that you don't lose out on a home that you really want, but also make sure that you don't overpay for a house that might not have as much competition as you think, is where we come into play, saving you money by helping you negotiate and making offers that will stand out, but have you not overpaying. And we also look at how to interpret the market where you're looking to move so that we can inform you before you even step foot into that first house or take a look at that first property, what a good game plan is and how to set your expectations going into that particular market. So that's all I have for you guys today. If you'd like market info specific to an area you're considering making a move, feel free to reach out via my contact info in the description below. If you learned something or got something of value out of today's video, consider subscribing so you can get notified when future market updates drop and other videos relating to the Metro Milwaukee area. Take care, guys, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next video.